The reason that Core Scientific stock is so brutally beaten down is that... All right, welcome to Talkin' Investing. I am Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk to you about Core Scientific, stock ticker CORZ. Core Scientific is a Bitcoin mining company. They mine Bitcoin, they host Bitcoin mining, and they also sell Bitcoin mining equipment. But first and foremost, by far, they are a Bitcoin mining company. So we talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners all the time on this channel. If you're watching this right now, there's more than a 50% chance that you have not subscribed to the channel yet. So we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. We're making a push for 10,000 subscribers. Let's talk about Core Scientific. Core Scientific just put out their monthly update for the month of May. So I want to go through their monthly update. I also want to look at Core Scientific versus a potential crypto winter. Obviously, none of this is financial advice, so please do your own due diligence. But with that, let's take a look at what happened to Core Scientific in May and how Core Scientific stands overall as a company. The first thing I want to do is show you that Core Scientific is trading at about $2.44 right now. We're in the middle of the trading day on June 7th. That leaves them with a market cap of $792 million. So this was a multi-billion dollar company just 2 or 3 months ago. It is now under $1 billion. It is no longer the largest market cap of the Bitcoin mining companies, which it had been since the day it went public. It is now the second largest, and it's almost tied with Marathon, which means there's a chance it could slip to third place overall. On the flip side, this is, from an operational standpoint, by far the biggest Bitcoin miner. They mine almost triple all the other Bitcoin miners in the space. To put it in perspective, Marathon has a bigger market cap now, and Core Scientific mined more than 4 times as many Bitcoin as they did in the month of May. So something's going on. This stock is getting taken out in a big way. In addition to the fact that Bitcoin has been down, all the Bitcoin mining stocks have been taking a big hit. This one has taken the biggest hit of all over the last few months, and it is now priced at a going out of business type of a price, in my opinion. So I will show you why I think that. Let's look at their May update. Okay, this was put out June 6th, so this was yesterday. Core Scientific announces May updates. Okay, we are now operating over 170,000 high-performance ASICs, and I have to tell you, some of those are their self-mining machines, and some of those are hosted mining machines. So we're going to break that into 2 different parts because those are 2 very different things. And produced 1,138 Bitcoin for our own account in May. So it's more than double the next closest company, which is Riot. Mike Levitt, Core Scientific Chief Executive Officer, said, "Our scale and balance sheet provide the flexibility to continue to invest in our growth and pursue opportunities that may arise from the recent market and industry dislocation." So this is a part of what we're going to look at. Is there opportunity here for Core Scientific to grow and take advantage of this down cycle? Or is Core Scientific the one that may have a problem in this down cycle? We're going to get to that. Self-mining. This is the main part of their business. Core Scientific's self-mining operations produced 1,138 Bitcoin in May, averaging 36.7 Bitcoin per day, a decrease from April's daily average of 37.4 Bitcoin. Those of you who watch the channel know the main thing that I like to do is look at month-over-month sequential growth. And most of the Bitcoin miners now in May, as these updates have come out, most of them are struggling to beat the month of April. So Core Scientific is no different. They mined a little bit less in May than they did in April. So they go on to say why. The decrease in average daily Bitcoin production resulted primarily from the Bitcoin network difficulty increasing on April 27th and May 10th, totaling approximately 10% increase, in addition to multiple curtailments in response to local grid operations. So Core Scientific, like many of the Bitcoin miners, cooperate with local businesses and communities, and they dial back their mining at times where the grid is needed for other things. So even though they're saying there was multiple curtailments, you can see that they averaged 36.7 in May and 37.4 back in April, so hardly any difference. I would say much more so the 10% increase in difficulty level is responsible for the change. So this is fairly consistent with everybody else in the month of May. So while we like to see growth, and for the most part, we've seen month-over-month growth, we've certainly seen quarter-over-quarter growth, and we've absolutely seen year-over-year growth. I would have to say that for Core Scientific, May was basically pretty much just an average month for their Bitcoin mining. As of May month end, Core Scientific operated its own fleet of more than 90,000 ASIC servers, producing 9.2 exahash. That is exactly double what Riot is doing. Riot has 4.6 exahash up and running. They are the second largest North American publicly traded Bitcoin mining company. So you can see Core Scientific is by far the largest largest company in North America mining Bitcoin. 9.2 exahash is by far the biggest number of self-mining. They also have, in addition to that, they are hosting another 80,000 ASIC servers. That is a significant hosting business. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing when we look at our crypto winter scenario, because one of the things about Core Scientific is they are by scale the largest company by far. Now, when Bitcoin is doing well and your gross profit is great and you're making money, that is wonderful. However, when times get tough, if gross profit margins narrow or potentially go away in a crypto winter, Core Scientific has more overhead and obligations by far than any other company in the industry. So that is one of the things we're going to take a look at. And we're talking about Bitcoin under 20,000, maybe under 15,000. Now, I am not predicting a crypto winter. I've been on record many times saying I do not believe that we are going to move into a crypto winter. However, there is a growing majority of people that do believe that Bitcoin is going to move into a crypto winter, or at least stay in an extended crypto bear market. We're already clearly in a bear market right now. So for that reason, I have been looking at these companies versus a Bitcoin winter to try and understand how each one of these companies would fare, because not every company is going to survive a crypto winter in all likelihood. By definition, an 85% decrease would put Bitcoin down around $10,000. So that would actually be quite disastrous for a lot of these Bitcoin miners. Okay, back up under self-mining. The last sentence is, as of May 31st, 2022, the company held 8,058 Bitcoin produced from operations. So I want to break that down because actually something has happened here in the month of May that Core Scientific has not done in the past, and they did it on a monster scale. I made a little spreadsheet and I want to go take a look at that and show you what's going on. Okay, so as of April 30th, Core Scientific had 9,618 Bitcoin. They mined 1,138 in the month of May, so that should have left them with 10,756 Bitcoin had they continued their HODL strategy, which they have been doing since they went public. They have been HODLing all of their Bitcoin. They mentioned that they were going to shift off of that and start to sell some of their Bitcoin. Well, not only did they sell some of their Bitcoin, they're left with 8,058 as of May 31st. So that means they sold 2,698 Bitcoin. That's more than 10 times more the next closest miner in the month of May. So this was a massive sale of Bitcoin. If we use $30,000 as an estimated average Bitcoin price, that's over $80 million in sales of Bitcoin. So they don't really go on, as you see, that was the whole press release. So they don't go on to say what they did with this $80 million. They don't go on to say if they did this because they believe the price is going to go a lot lower, so they're hedging their bets and they're turning this into cash, or whether they needed $80 million to go fulfill their equipment obligations and other things like that. Obviously, if that is what it takes to stay in business, then they can only do that for a few months and they will be out of Bitcoin. So I don't believe that that is what it takes, because as we look at the income statement, the math doesn't work on that. Some of this must have been utilized for infrastructure or new Bitcoin mining machines, or just to increase their cash position on their balance sheet. Okay, so the other thing to look at in a crypto winter is, what is this company's overhead? How much cash are they spending? So these Bitcoin mining income statements can be very confusing. So what I try to do is pull out all the cash items and show you their overhead was about $44.8 million. $25.7 million of that was non-cash compensation. So that leaves them at about $19 million in the first quarter of 2022. Remember, these are quarterly numbers. So that's $19 million of cash needed for operations. That does not include direct costs of Bitcoin mining. That's just their general overhead. In addition to that, when we look at the balance sheet, you're going to see this company has a massive amount of debt. So their interest expense for the quarter was $21.6 million. So the two of those things put together means that just from a cash basis, from an income statement standpoint, they need to come up with $40 million a quarter in cash flow to cover their cash requirements. So at Bitcoin 40,000 and 50,000 and 60,000, they have very big gross profit margins, and that is not an issue at all. The question is, where does that break down? At what Bitcoin price does that break down? And this starts to turn into an issue where they're not covering their overhead. This is the biggest amount of overhead out of all the publicly traded companies in North America. That's a $40 million quarterly amount that there's really not much they can do to change. Okay, the last thing I want to do is take a look at their balance sheet, because this company's balance sheet is set up quite a bit different than most of the Bitcoin miners that we have looked at and covered on the channel. I'm going to compare and contrast them with Hut 8. Hut 8 has what I consider an A or an A plus balance sheet. Because of their stock prices skyrocketed in the first half of the year, they were able to use stock dilution and equity to raise massive amounts of money. Core Scientific had to use debt in order to do that. So what I want to do is look at assets versus liabilities and look at debt. So the first thing I want to point out, you'll see their long-term liabilities, their notes payable is over $1 billion. All told, they have about $1,160 million of debt. So if I take a look at Hut 8 to compare and contrast, their loans payable is $20 million. Unfortunately, goodwill is a non-cash item, and it has no benefit on a going forward basis as far as cash flow goes. If we look at their assets net of their goodwill, they have about $1.7 billion in assets. Well, if we look at their total liabilities, they have just under $1.6 billion in liabilities. So they are very, very close to a 1-to-1 ratio on total assets to total liabilities. If I go back and look at Hut 8, they have about $453 million in current assets, and they have $22 million in current liabilities. That's about a 20-to-1 ratio of current assets to current liabilities. In a healthy market, this balance sheet is just fine and they would be able to cover their expenses with no problem. But if we're looking at Bitcoin in a crypto winter, then these numbers get very difficult. There is a massive amount of debt that this company is carrying. So not only do they have to pay off principal portions of that debt, which hurts their cash flow, but they have to pay about $20 million in interest every quarter on that debt, which hurts their cash flow. So at some point, there is a number at which Bitcoin could drop to where Core Scientific would no longer be able to pay their bills. And they are already basically 100% leveraged with their asset to liabilities being at almost a 1-to-1 ratio. I can't say that they will go out of business in a crypto winter, but I can tell you that Core Scientific, much more so than some of the other ones we've looked at, they are at risk in a potential crypto winter. The reason that Core Scientific stock is so brutally beaten down is that there is some risk here in a crypto winter. The first thing is you'll see that Core Scientific hit a new all-time low on May 12th. So a lot of the Bitcoin miners hit a low on that same day. That was $3.14. They are now trading at $2.42, significantly below that. So they have hit a series of new lows almost every single day since then, really since June 1st. So just over the course of the last 2 months, Core Scientific stock is down 75%. This is about 2 months and 2 weeks worth of activity. So this is a drastic pullback. And again, this goes to the fact that I think people have deep concerns about a potential crypto winter. So the risk reward on this stock actually becomes much larger than all the other stocks. Yes, there is a bigger risk to the downside. However, since the stock has been pushed so low, there is a bigger potential reward to the upside. So if we look at the flip side of that, if Core Scientific were to get healthy, if Bitcoin were to get healthy, and Core Scientific was able to get back to its March highs, so that was again just about 2.5 months ago, that would be a 290% increase in the price of this stock. So we're going to see that the stocks that are more vulnerable to a crypto winter are going to have a much bigger risk and a much bigger reward potential. So you guys have to know your own risk appetite. You guys have to do your own due diligence and decide if these stocks make sense to you. So that's what I got for you on Core Scientific. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far, please remember to subscribe to the channel and smash the like button. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.